onslaught better than we usually do.
All right, chums up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Dragons!
Oh my god, he just ran in.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back for episode 25 of LFR, the casual podcast for casual players of World of Warcraft, where we make the lore of Warcraft more accessible than the race to world first. Even if you aren't competing, because, let's be honest, probably none of us are, you can still watch it on Twitch. LFR usually stands for looking for raid, but this week I'm making it really easy, and it stands for longing for raid, because we've cracked into the Sanctum twice, and I just can't wait for more. And I called it Sanctum, and it's not Sanctum anymore. Anyways, I'm your host, Sirithe, and this week I'm joined by the best guild master in all of Warcraft, the amazing Aeon. Now, fans of Lex's stream will be familiar with this voice being referred to as Luke, but for anyone who isn't familiar, Aeon, how about you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, so like Sirithe said, I go by Luke or Aeon. I'm one of the many guild or raid leaders of the Timbermaw Tavern. I think a lot of people tend to think of me as like, some people say like, oh, you're the guild leader. No. It's a council up there on the officers. I just happen to be the one that usually speaks the most during raid. So a little bit about myself. I've been playing WoW for almost 15 years now, off and on. I am a forever druid. I've always sort of been a raid leader, whether it was with IRL friends or now with a broader community, which I'm enjoying more. But fun fact about me is that I have been called Master of Google Slides because I'm known for pulling up Google Slides anytime we're introducing a boss. And people laugh and joke about it, but we do much better every time I pull them up. So I'm going to keep on doing it.
As much as I like to make fun of them, I do really love them.
And they're fun to make too sometimes. So I don't mind doing it.
Well, thank you for joining me today. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for another dive into an aspect of lore in the World of Warcraft. Today, we're going to talk about everyone's favorite sleepy boy, the OG druid himself, Malfurion Stormrage. But first, we've got some other stuff.
You love me! You really love me!
So, we have no new reviews this week, but if you like this show, and really can only assume you do if you're still listening, especially 25 episodes in. Can't believe we hit 25. Please do take the time to leave us a review either on your preferred podcast platform or on the Warcraft Radio directory. I do that every episode. Or just send us an email or a DM. Everything helps. And now we have our lovely AOTC patrons who will be getting their names read out each and every episode until they decide we aren't worth the money anymore. And this week we've got to thank Mud and, of course, our buddy Dracoris. And if you want to be like Mud and Dracoris, you can join them and our other patrons at patreon.com/LFRWowcast. So, news-wise, we have news about upcoming news, basically.
News about the news.
Yeah, so we've got the 10.0 expansion announcement coming in April. I think it was April 14th. I didn't write it down.
Yeah. Do you want me to go ahead and start asking questions here? I'm so pumped about this. People have been talking about, hey, we're going to have this super long drought for 9.2. I think them coming out and bringing the 10.0 announcement here in April is sort of a sign that we're going to get back to hopefully somewhat of a standard cadence for expansions and patches. I think we're getting into 10.0 by like Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I could see that. Thanksgiving or, maybe between Thanksgiving and Christmas again.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be something like what they did with Shadowlands, which is where they said, like, yeah, it's going to be Thanksgiving. Then they delayed it to Christmas and then they delayed it to January. I could see that happening just given the circumstances of everything on. But I really am optimistic about that. I don't know if you're going to mention this too, but importantly, there is the mobile Warcraft announcement coming in May. which everyone's like laughing about. But man, I don't know. Any chance to like add quality game content to the Warcraft universe, I'm just going to be happy about. And if it has cool hooks back into your character, I'm all about that. I'm going to be getting it for sure.
See, I know I'll play it, but I'm almost hoping it's not World of Warcraft and it's just Warcraft and we're getting some sort of RTS back in Warcraft.
That would be cool. I would be doubtful that is this one, but I wouldn't be doubtful that that's on the horizon, right? I think a lot of people for a long time have been rumor milling that they're going to make something like that for the computer. And I would imagine that just becomes a mobile game as well at the same time.
Like, yes, Blizzard, we have phones. Let me play an RTS again.
Yeah. I think it's definitely coming. I think more realistically, it's going to be like either Pokemon or fishing, because we've been asking for fishing forever.
Ooh, I would play the hell out of the fishing.
Dude, it's a good thing to do on the toilet. Catch 3 fish while you go to the bathroom.
All right, well, let's see who's looking for somebody to play with this week.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
So, this week, we're going to plug Timbermaw Tavern again. But who better to plug it than Aeon?
Yeah, thanks, Sirithe. So, we asked Sirithe to go ahead and plug the guild here on the last couple of podcasts. I really do want to say, like, if you're listening to this and you're looking for a guild, we are absolutely in love with any new people that we invite into the guild. Just to describe it, right, the officers have been talking a lot, and one of the core things that we say about it, we're an AOTC-focused guild. We always strive to get that pretty early in the patch if we can. But more importantly, from a cultural standpoint, I would describe us as an inclusive plus guild, right? We are very much about fostering a welcoming community. And I think sometimes people can say like, oh, well, that's not really for me. You know, it's a little too laid back or something. No, we're still a pretty intense guild in terms of trying to focus on coachability and performance. But at the same time, like we're all about supporting people in who they want to be. And so I think that it's ended up creating a pretty awesome place with a lot of really cool people to hang out with. So seriously, if you're looking for a guild or looking for a change and you want a pretty laid back environment in terms of one night a week and you want to get AOTC every tier, that's us.
And now you're the third raid team member who's been on LFR. Oh, I mean, if I count myself fourth, but yes.
You're just going to have to rename the podcast soon.
Seriously. Timbermaw Tavern is a good podcast name. But yeah, if you want to raid with me and Aeon and Lex and Jin, check us out. It's a really fun time.
Yeah, dude, we're looking right now for DPS specifically. We always love swing healers when we can get them. We're pretty reliable on tanks, but we're just looking to get above that 20 player mark. I think we're consistently at about 18 right now. So again, if you're looking for a change, let us know.
Just no warlocks, because I just respected demonology and my parses are terrible. So I don't want to be the worst.
You'll get
warlock
up
in the
there.
guild.
You'll get up there. It's definitely going to take time anytime you
switch
switch between
they
things.
Were rough.
Oh yeah, dude. No, you'll be good. Anytime you switch between things, and this is why I never switch classes. It takes forever to switch between specs and learn the rotation and all that stuff.
But enough about raid. We should probably get to the lore.
And how is education supposed to make me feel smarter? Besides, every time I learn something new, it pushes some old stuff out of my brain.
So, this week, in keeping with the new tradition of our awesome guest host choosing what we cover, Aeon chose to cover everyone's favorite, or least, I guess it depends on how you look at it. Looking at you, Lex. Sleepy Boy, Malfurion, Stormrage. Now, I think Aeon chose this just because he's a Druid fanboy, and would probably like Timbermaw Tavern to become composed of only Druids. I mean, 3 of our officers are Druids. But why don't we hear it straight from the source?
Yeah, dude, I'll say fell in love with, but maybe that's too strong of words, with Malfurion back in Warcraft 3. That's sort of when I started like really realizing how much I liked Druidic lore and the aesthetic of Druids. But since I've gotten into WoW, I've just felt like there's so much potential from the character, but I've been so sad to see how they've wasted it on him. Like you said, sleepy guy. He's been asleep for like half of the game's lifespan. So druids haven't really had a prominent leader in the lore because Malfurion's just sitting on the bench. And at the end of this, I'd kind of like to talk about how they could better use Malfurion to make him a more relevant character in the game of WoW. But let's go ahead and learn about him first.
All right. So Malfurion has a long, long history, but luckily for us to keep it casual, he spends most of it asleep while his amazingly badass wife does all the heavy lifting. Let's dive in.
I must protect the wild.
So pretty much all of our early Malfurion information comes from the War of the Ancients trilogy, written by Richard Knack. Obviously, we know, well, maybe not obviously. If we still had Lou to ask, we would do that, but Malfurion is Illidan's twin brother, and there's some angst there. It's mostly on Illidan's side because he is very emotional, but it does exist. At the start, we learn that Malfurion, along with Illidan and Tyrande, have all been learning Druidism from Cenarius, but only Malfurion really shows a real talent for it. At the same time, Queen Ashara and the Highborn have been delving deep into the Well of Eternity to try and gain more power. Well, this attracted the interest of Sargeras and his Burning Legion. Queenie and her crew decided to join up with the Legion to kill all of Azeroth. I don't know how Sargeras talked him into it, but he must have a silver tongue or something. So the Legion invades, and Malfurion joins a resistance who are trying to stop the demons and save Queen Ashara, because Night Elves are that stupid, and they think that their queen must be being held hostage and forced to let the Legion slaughter them. Eventually, the Highborn shut down access to the Well of Eternity to the rest of Night Elven society. Malfurion, in what's going to be a recurring theme throughout his entire life, dives into the Emerald Dream to try and break down the barrier. He's detected by Xavius, the head Highborn, who has magic eyes. Actually, in the book, they're really cool how they describe them, because they're like black onyx with like red stripes through them.
Yeah, I remember that.
I haven't read those books in a long time. They're a long read. So Malfurion ends up being, after he's in prison, he's rescued by Cenarius, who finds him with the help of Tyrande. Another recurring theme. Tyrande rescuing Malfurion. Malfurion breaks the barrier around the well, and he fries our buddy Xavius with some lightning while he's at it. You'd think that would be it for Xavius, right? No. Sargeras actually liked him a whole lot and turned him into the first satyr. And he also now has a very deep hatred for Malfurion.
Yeah, dude, Xavius has been... I don't know why I always thought of him as one of the coolest villains in the game. It doesn't even make sense. He's really not that prominent. But it's probably just because when I was 14 years old and started playing the game, like, oh, he's a cool satyr. But the story behind him and his ongoing fight with Malfurion just makes him much more nefarious than I had originally thought. So when I was reading up on Malfurion here and diving deep, I really appreciated sort of justification for why I liked him.
Yeah, I'd say Xavius is one of the better villains they've written. Yeah, he's not like necessarily an earth-ending threat like some of the other villains, but he's persistent. He's cunning. He kind of reminds me of Sire Denathrius in a way.
Yeah, and unlike villains that we get to experience today, he actually has a backstory.
Yeah.
That's a shot at the jailer, everyone.
Yeah, I could rant about the jailer for an hour.
We'll do that later.
So Malfurion and the somewhat smart Night Elves continue to try and hold against the Legion. They manage to get the Dragonflights to help them, but Neltharion betrays the Dragonflights with the Dragon Soul and kills quite a few dragons. He kills some demons too. While that battle is happening, Xavius manages to kidnap Tyrande, and despite Malfurion and Chandris Feathermoon trying to stop him, Tyrande is taken away. Chandris does hit Xavius with a few arrows, and Malfurion uses those arrows to turn Xavius into some twisted tree being thing. Wonder if
is this like, was that like voodoo magic? Like when I was reading the notes, I was like, I don't really understand what happened here.
Yeah, he used the wood in the arrow shaft and basically grew it into a tree with Xavius at the center of it.
Oh, yeah. See, why don't they do that stuff in the game? All right, keep going.
Because druids are already overpowered. Well,
I don't know what you're talking about. We don't talk about that. That's not true. That's slander.
No, warriors are more overpowered right now.
Yeah, that's true.
So another blow to the Night Elves here is that Illidan leaves the resistance to join Ashara. Sargeras rewards Illidan by burning his eyes out, and both brothers go to try to steal the Dragon Soul from Neltharion. Illidan wants it to open the portal. Malfurion wants it to close the portal. Illidan ends up getting the Dragon Soul, and the Legion is using it to open the portal large enough for Sargeras to come through and basically chop Azeroth in half. Malfurion and the Resistance attack the well, and Mal uses his druidic magic. Before that, they attack the well. They manage to get their hands on the Dragon Soul, and with that, Mal uses his druidic magic to reverse the polarity of the portal, and it sucks all the demons back in. Of course, this also causes a sundering and kills a bunch of people, but it doesn't kill all the people, so I think it's still a win.
Oh no, you only killed half the planet.
Also, if druids can use their magic to reverse portals, can you like reverse summon people if I put up a closet?
I don't know. I feel like I need the Dragon Soul. So until I get that, you're going to be stuck on closet duty, I think.
All right. Well, the Night Elves try to rebuild their society atop Mount Hyjal, but Illidan, who rejoined the Resistance at the final battle, ends up pouring water that he stole from the well into a lake at the top of Hyjal. He kills a couple Highborn while he's at it, and Malfurion imprisons him for life. The Aspects then, minus Deathwing, because, he's Deathwing now, and also minus Malagos, because he's crazy, because Deathwing killed most of his flight, grow and bless the World Tree Nordrassil over the new well. And interesting side effect of that is they give the Night Elves immortality. So now Malfurion imprisoning Illidan for life went from you're imprisoned for a long time because we live a long time to you're imprisoned until the end of time. And if you
this is when they're still immortal, right?
Yeah, this is when they first became immortal.
Okay, yeah.
So, and if you ever read the Illidan novel, the cell he's in, he has enough space to take like 8 steps either way. And it's just pure darkness. He doesn't get food because they sustain him magically. So he just stood in a dark square for 10,000 years.
It's no wonder that he didn't mind blowing his eyes out later in life to become the Demon Hunter.
Well, his eyes were already gone. Sarge burned him.
Oh, whoops.
He just eats the skull and gets wings. But we're doing his brother. His brother's arguably cooler. But after all of that, Malfurion was really tired. So he slept for a long time. Up until the War of the Satyr, which was like 4,500 years after the War of the Ancients. He mostly woke up to prevent his druids from using the form of the pack. So back then, druids could turn into wolves. Malfurion had actually done it while training with Cenarius and lost control and attacked Cenarius. And he banned the form because of that, because it was uncontrollable. But with the satyrs attacking the Night Elves, quite a few druids wanted to use that pack form. And Malfurion was like, no, you can't do it. So more and more did, and eventually they lost control and just became wolves. And they were the first Worgen. Eventually...
Yeah. I didn't realize that this was how the Worgen concept was born. For loving Malfurion so much, I knew so little about like how much his history had an impact on shaping what we were doing today.
Mm-hmm. So eventually, to stop the druids of the pack, Malfurion had to use a scythe that was crafted from a fang of Goldred and a staff blessed by a loon. The scythe of a loon, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is that one of the druid artifact weapons?
Yep, that's the Boomkin one. That's the one that I'm transmog to all the time.
Okay. I never played through as a Boomkin in Legion. I wanted the Ursonic Palace.
Oh yeah, that was the cool legendary artifact that you could get. The other ones were all right, but definitely the scythe was definitely the coolest cosmetic.
I still use the. Actually, I forget what it's called now, but it's the Affliction artifact appearance for Warlocks. It's the scythe. But anyways, Malfurion used the Scythe of a Loon to put all the members of the Druids of the Pack into a deep slumber underneath the tree Darlnir. After that, outside of a bit of yelling at Fandral Staghelm for taking branches from Nordrassil to grow another world tree that coincidentally got corrupted by Yogg-Saron and created the Emerald Nightmare, Malfurion basically slept until Warcraft 3.
All right, Sirithe, I got to interrupt you. As a fellow CrossFitter here, how the hell does this guy still have a six-pack after sleeping for a millennia? Like, seriously, come on. I work out 6 times a week, and I still can't get a freaking six-pack. And he grows one in his sleep. It's just not fair. He's got to be doing Power Queens or something.
I'm going to go with magic.
That's BS. Can I get some of that?
Like, he's probably using the druidic magic to just have anything he consumes be the exact perfect amount for what he needs.
Oh, ultimate macros.
Exactly. He's never out. He's in constant ketosis.
That's right. That's right.
So Tyrande decided that the Legion returning was finally time to wake up Mr. Beauty Sleep. And she wakes him up, and they go to the Barrow Den where Illidan was imprisoned. Tyrande frees Illidan to help against the Legion, even though Malfurion was like, bad idea, don't do it. So the third war against the Legion is going on, and the Night Elves reach an accord with the humans and orcs to fight against the Legion. Eventually, they lure Archimonde to the World Tree, that being the World Tree Nordrassil, and as he's trying to absorb the powers of the World Tree to, open a portal and bring Sargeras through, Malfurion calls all the powers of the forest and all the wisps and basically attacked Archimonde with them, blew him up, and killed him and his crew. This was before Blizzard decided that demons had immortal demon souls and Archimonde would come back in Warlord's Draenor. Afterwards, Malfurion and Tyrande helped Maiev to try and recapture Illidan, who had formed an alliance with the Naga and the Blood Elves. So, Malfurion stopped Illidan from using the Eye of Sargeras to destroy Northrend in an attempt to kill the Lich King. I was thinking about putting a bit in the notes here where maybe he shouldn't, because if the Lich King died there's no Helm and we're not playing Shadowlands right now. But that would have also meant we didn't get to play Wrath.
Yeah, but I can talk about this at the end, being a twin. You can't kill your twin brother. It's like nature does not allow it.
So after all that, Malfurion helped Tyrande rebuild their people, and he also befriended the Tauren Hamul Rune Totem and trained him in the Druidic arts. So that's, if you play a Tauren Druid, that's why you can play a Tauren Druid. So during Classic, the Burning Crusade, Wrath, Malfurion he was sleeping. He was sleeping the whole time. I guess the Lich King just wasn't worth waking up for.
But
I need to make a drum sounder now that I have buttons.
You're gonna have to get a few more now that you've got a soundboard for you.
Yeah. So Malfurion probably didn't like that I was ripping on him for sleeping throughout the first 3 expansions. He might say something like,
You tempt nature's wrath.
I love it.
Because we find out in the Stormrage novel why he's been sleeping so long. So while he's been sleeping, Fandral Staghelm has been poisoning Malfurion's physical body. Because he's a little crazy ever since his son died. Which happened in the War of the Scarab. Which was... Malfurion was sleeping, so I didn't study any of it for this. And just while he was being poisoned, Malfurion was also captured in the dream by the Nightmare Lord. You might remember the Nightmare Lord as Xavius. Yep, he survived again. And when his tree was brought to the bottom of the sea in the Sundering, he ended up old god adjacent and became anchored to the Emerald Dream / Nightmare. And he's still going after Malfurion. So eventually, Malfurion's rescued from the nightmare by Tyrande, of course, and Brawl Bearmantle, who we have talked about a bit on the show in the Variant episode. And I always want to think that Brawl Bearmantle is a Tauren, and I always am wrong. He's a night elf.
Sounds like Bull Bearmantle, which bull with a Tauren cow. Yeah, that would make sense.
And there's a couple other people involved, but they're only appear in the novel, and they're not important. They only appear in literally that one novel. So after he's rescued, Malfurion leads an attack on the Nightmare and battles against Xavius. Now, I was not rereading the Stormrage novel because I didn't like it. But Wowpedia told me that he killed Xavius again and seals the rest of the Nightmare into the Rift of Elm.
Yeah, I agree with you about this book. You know, I listened to most of the Warcraft books on audiobook, and this was one of the ones where I just couldn't keep my focus on it and decided to not re-listen to portions of it. Richard Knack's writing has never been like a favorite of mine, and the weirdest thing to me is that in this book, almost all of Azeroth dies, right? Like it gets to the brink of the end of Azeroth because of the spread of the Emerald Nightmare. And I had never heard about that before reading the book. Like, how can such a world-shaping event, it's like the pandemic, right? Like if COVID happened in WoW, you think that we would all know about it, but it happened in this book and it just sort of gets swept under the rug.
Yeah. Yeah, Knack's books are very, very hit or miss to me.
Yeah, they're super action heavy, right? Like he's very much about describing action sequences, and there's not a lot of room for character development like Christy Golden has. Like what is it? Arthas's book is pretty much entirely just clips of Arthas having minor character developments and doesn't really care about the plot. And Knack is like the complete opposite.
Speaking of Christy Golden, the Sylvanas novel comes out in like 3 weeks, and I can't wait.
I got to get the book, the audiobook.
Yeah, and Patty Madison reads that. So you'll have Sylvanas reading you her own novel.
That's very nice.
So we get to Cataclysm, and we finally see Malfurion in game. He's actually pretty active in Cataclysm, especially in the Hyjal Zone. So the Hyjal Zone, the story is basically Ragnaros and the Druids of the Flame are attacking and trying to burn down Nordrassil, which is slowly regrowing after the whole Legion thing. I skipped one of the best jokes I wrote in this episode. So Malfurion leads an attack on the Firelands and the Druids of the Flame because they, as well as their master Ragnaros, are being stopped from pulling a Sylvanas and torturing Nordrassil. So they go into the Shadowlands, Jesus. The Firelands. With our help, we stop Ragnaros. Malfurion, stands in the back as major lore characters do during raids. And yeah, we stop him. After that, Malfurion's basically a basic NPC until Legion. And we don't see much from him. But in Legion, we see quite a bit of him. He's a main player in the Vol'sharah zone. So we go to Val'sharah to get the Tears of Elune because they are a Titan, a pillar of creation. Jeez, I totally forgot what those were called. And we meet Malfurion there. We go to see Cenarius and find out he's afflicted by the Emerald Nightmare. So yeah, we go to find Ysera to get her aid, but Xavius is there waiting and attacks and steals the Tears of Elune. At which point Cenarius fully succumbs to the corruption of the nightmare, and Malfurion gets angry.
You tempt nature's wrath.
And goes after Xavius in a rage. Xavius wasn't done, though. He uses the Tears of Elune to corrupt Ysera and kidnaps Malfurion. You then have the entire Ysera storyline, which is some of the best writing Blizzard has done, I think, in the past few expansions. And Tyrande and the player pursue Malfurion, but are forced to give up and go protect the Temple of Elune from Xavius' forces. During this whole thing, the chasing Malfurion storyline, we get what most people are going to recognize as Malfurion's most notable lines in the game.
Where are you, Tyrande? I need you.
Dude, that line was so horrible. And it's in between some of the best story, right? Like, as a druid, when Ysera gets converted and when Cenarius gets converted, like, it's just stabs in your heart if you are, like, actually tied to the aesthetic of the druids. And then Malfurion's Tyrande. It's so bad.
I was thinking about having Jin record himself doing that because he does it so well. But I never ended up asking.
Yeah, he does a good one, that's for sure.
Every time he does that. So, and I should have just cut Tyrande and just played a Tyrande sounder now every time I say it. But Tyrande and the players, we eventually free Malfurion from Xavius. Well, it was the shade of Xavius at the Darkheart Thicket. And if you want more information on that, just go listen to the latest episode of Dungeon Fables. Allie tells the story of the dungeon way better than I can. Malfurion travels with us into the Emerald Nightmare and helps us to save Cenarius. But when it's time to go fight Xavius, he stays with Cenarius. He says he's too connected to the dream to go in there. And yeah, we go to kill Xavius by ourselves. We succeed, and so far we haven't seen Xavius again, so maybe the 5th time's the charm?
Yeah, I think we actually closed the Rift of Alm there. So I think if we were going to see him again, it would probably be with, like, the Void Lords or something, because he was corrupted by Yogg-Saron, right? Did I say that right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And so since he's the same idea that, like, the Dread Lords were infused with so much fell magic that they started reappearing on in the Twisting Nether, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same idea that, like, maybe Xavius would show up again wherever the Void Lords or wherever we fight them in the Cosmic Disco War.
I could see that happening. So the next big beat we see of Malfurion's story is during the intro to BFA. So obviously Sylvanas is leading the Horde and attacking Teldrassil, and Malfurion's gonna fight her. I mean, you're not just gonna be like, just have our home. Ask Ukraine.
Too soon.
Yeah. I just lost my track. Yeah. So he goes to stop Sylvanas, and while he's facing off with Sylvanas, Varrock Sourfang hits him from behind with his axe. But Sourfang doesn't kill him because he feels it isn't honorable. Arguably, probably isn't. Hitting somebody in the back is usually not the most honorable. Tyrande arrives to save Malfurion yet again, but she doesn't kill Sourfang because he spared Malfurion's life. Malfurion recovers and later raids some Horde supply caravans, but doesn't do much more of note during the expansion. That I recall. I also didn't play Alliance yet in BFA. And then as far as Shadowlands, he's not really there. He stayed home, and Sylvanas went to Wreck Shop. And that's our first druid.
May nature guide your path.
So what do you think about Malfurion now?
So 2 things right off the bat. One, that's our first druid. It'll probably be your last druid, because unless you're going to talk about Hama Rune Totem, I don't think that there's anybody else that's big enough to fit onto a casual World of Warcraft podcast, which is sort of the crux of my whole issue with this altogether. The other thing that I want to bring up, you were just talking about how Malfurion raids some Horde supply caravans right after or right before the burning of Teldrassil. If you haven't watched that cinematic and you're listening to this, definitely pause, go watch the Terror of Darkshore cinematic, because it's the first time that they actually managed to make Malfurion look cool since maybe Warcraft 3, when he was just a super powerful hero in that game. It shows off his power. It shows off the vengeful side of nature and druids that we haven't really gotten from the game. Like, he literally pulls one of the Horde into the earth with like roots and vines, and it swallows him like quicksand. And like, to think of, benevolent, neutral Malfurion doing that to somebody is just wild. I love that scene in the cinematic. It's the epitome of what I think druids should be. Then it also, like, in that cinematic also shows some like level of ancient wisdom. But it again, if you're listening to this, you should go watch the cinematic. I saw Sirithe hopped off video. He may have had some issues with his baby, which is cool. So I'm gonna keep going until he. You're good. Okay.
But yeah, yeah, he's been done dirty, but at the same time, like, I wish he did more, but it also kind of means we get more Tyrande, which is definitely not a bad thing.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's great. The way that they've allowed Tyrande to shine in the recent expansions. And I'm not going to go off on a deep end. Like, Lex does a great job of talking about how they're not doing the best writing with Tyrande either, or with any of their major female characters. And if you haven't heard her rant about that, you should check her out on her stream. But I agree with you, right? Like,
Team Divided.
What's that?
Or the first episode of Team Divided. We touch Malfurion a lot there.
Yes, you do. Yeah. I think ultimately Malfurion's sort of a passive noodle in this story, and they're wasting a lot of potential on him. Like, for instance, when we were raiding Azshara, why didn't they have Malfurion and Azshara together in the room and reminiscing about the ancient, like, elven empire, right? Like, they were both there. Malfurion was literally trying to save her, and we don't see any interaction between the two of them. People who have been around for literally thousands of years.
Yeah, that was a big missed story beat there. Is Malfurion and Tyrande should have both been down there.
Yeah, yep. Ultimately, the reason that I think Malfurion is such a poor character in the lore right now is actually because he's a lot like Superman. And there's a lot of people that are going to kill me for doing this. But Superman is one of the most boring heroes in, like, the Marvel DC expanded 2 universes. He is in. What's that?
I fully agree.
Yeah, dude, he has no flaws, right? Like, he's just, I don't know, we're going to get to kryptonite, okay? We're going to get to kryptonite. But he's invincible, and he, like, the only thing that can harm him is literally just a chunk of green glowing rock. And so Malfurion's the same way. It's just the Emerald Nightmare, right? Malfurion is the most powerful character in lore. Yeah, he's the most powerful character in lore. But he doesn't have any character flaws, right? Like, he doesn't give in to temptation that we see very often. He's not conflicted about, serving the Night Elves versus saving nature. We don't see that conflict in him very much. But as soon as the Emerald Nightmare comes into the scene in any way, he's asleep for thousands of years, right? He just becomes useless. So, like, he's just such a Superman with a kryptonite and no character flaws for us to care about.
I hadn't put that together yet, but that really fits.
Yeah. I have more. I'm going to keep going until you tell me that we got to wrap up. So some other complexities that I wanted them to explore with Malfurion. What does an ancient marriage or partnership look like? And what are the challenges that come from that, right? Him and Tyrande have one of the cooler relationships in that, again, they've been married for so long. And maybe that's why
they've
Tyrande
been
gives him
together for so long, but they didn't get married until Cataclysm.
You're right. Yep, you're right. They did not get married till Cataclysm. That's my mistake. But still, even being together that long and knowing each other for that long, I think that it puts an interesting spin on why Tyrande has been so forgiving for Malfurion just being absent from everything for so long. Because that's what the reality of being ancient is. But we don't see that explored very well. And then the other thing that I wish that they would explore better is his relationship with Illidan. When Illidan came back in Legion, where was the conversations about, like, you're my twin, you're my brother, how could you betray me like this, right? And I know that they have those conversations before, but it didn't happen in WoW. It happened in Warcraft 3. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of room for them to really make Illidan change Malfurion in a visible way that I just don't think was hammered home very well.
Yeah, I mean, the only interaction we got with Illidan with Tyrande or Malfurion was the notes he sent them after the Argus raid when he was written out of the story again.
And those, like, that note that if you read that on Wowpedia, that was a really heartfelt, touching note. Like, reading it the other day, I was like, wow, that, if Kirk wrote me that would be really, like, heartfelt. So that's sort of the end of the issues that I have with him. But what I want is I actually just want new blood. And Kirk and I have been arguing about this for a while. We want a WoW reset. We want younger characters to come in and introduce them and make them the heroes with a capital H. But we need a new druid who cares about the physical Azeroth, not just the Emerald Dream, not the Emerald Nightmare, right? Somebody who is involved in the political scene between the Horde and the Alliance, especially now that we're coming together more, and cares about, like, the geopolitical stuff that's going on there. Somebody who is in cutscenes right next to Anduin, right next to Jaina. And you're laughing because I'm arguing for druids to be more important, but, like, it's so wasted.
And arguably, with the physical planet of Azeroth as it is, they need Azeroth needs druids now probably more than it ever has. I mean, even outside of the giant sword sticking out of it, you've got the Cataclysm still happened recently. You've got everything that happened during BFA. You've got goblins strip mining the planet. Druids are very important for Azeroth right now.
Yeah, I'd say druids and shamans, right? When you look at the Cataclysm, most of that's centered around the shamans. I would say that you're probably looking at a more important druidic thing when dealing with Azeroth herself. But I agree with you, right? Like, right now, Zappy Boy is like the shaman that we all care about. But we need a new druid that we care about. Maybe that's Broll. Maybe that's somebody new. But I think that I just want them to promote some sort of druid up into the main person that shows up in cinematics going forward.
Yeah, I think, like you said with Zappy Boy, that was a good fit for kind of not replacing, but phasing out Thrall a little bit. And Anduin kind of phased, he didn't have a choice, but he kind of phased out Varian. And I feel like there's a couple other characters we've seen that happening with.
Yeah, what I really want is I want Malfurion to become to whoever they make the new druid. I want Malfurion to be what Velen is to Anduin, right? Like that wise advisor who is perfect, right? And Velen does have his flaws, which makes Velen a good hero as well. But push Malfurion into the wise advisor role and just make him the background character. We need somebody better up front.
Especially with Cenarius out of the story again after everything with the Nightmare. Malfurion would fit that role really well.
Yeah, and as much as I love Cenarius as a concept, it's really hard because he is a demigod. He's not like a playable race or anything. So it was hard to feel like, oh, I could eventually become Cenarius, right? There's no... I'm sure if you're a mage, you might aspire to be Jaina, or you might aspire to become Medivh or something. But
Khadgar,
as a druid... Yeah, Khadgar, yeah. As a druid, I don't aspire to become Cenarius.
I mean, I play a warlock, so I have nobody to aspire. What am I going to aspire to? Gul'dan?
Yep. Hey,
I want to betray my people.
Yeah. But I do think even Warlocks, Gul'dan being such a powerful villain, I think gives Warlocks sort of a pass. But Warlocks could probably do for a good dose of getting a new main character in there as well.
Mm-hmm. We don't really have one.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, again, when I was thinking about this, I was like, priests. Oh, Anduin kind of fills that role. Warlocks, nobody. Yeah. My final thoughts on Malfurion. I felt, like I said in the beginning, I fell in love with him in Warcraft 3 because he was a druid, and I liked playing Night Elves in Warcraft 3, and he was the most prominent hero from it. When I learned that he was a twin, it was and again, a twin to probably the most complex character in WoW, or in one of the most interesting with Illidan. I was definitely hooked then. And then I didn't join WoW until the end of BC, and I didn't start paying attention to the story until Legion. So, like, I got to skip the worst parts of Malfurion in the game just by the fact that I wasn't paying attention. But I was supremely disappointed in his role in Legion because I found his voice acting was terrible. The whole Tyrande was horrible, and the rest of his line.
Tyrande?
Yeah, exactly. Tyrande. Oh, man. And then I never felt like he was ever at a great risk or solved some sort of unique or complex challenge. He was just sort of there and wasn't really epic. So, again, I really hope that they can find a way to make him interesting again, push him into more of a teaching role, maybe give him a star pupil that becomes the big H hero. And then we can see him shifting into the background because I don't think that they can realistically repair him as the main druid anymore.
We need a Druid Zappy Boy.
That's right. Druid Zappy Boy, 2022.
But the problem is his nickname is inevitably going to become, because of the Emerald Dream, he's just going to be Nappy Boy.
Nappy Boy. I love it.
I hope somebody from Blizzard is listening to this and taking notes. I doubt it.
I mean,
maybe.
I'll send it right to their front desk. I have all the background, all the connections.
All right. I think that about does it for Malfurion today. So, thank you so much for coming on today with me. I've had a ton of fun with this. It was interesting going through Malfurion. Originally, I felt like this episode was going to be a lot longer than it was, and then realized, oh, no, he just misses a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at Wowpedia, it looks scary, but you did a good job consolidating it down into a shorter timeline.
Yeah, I don't quite have Dracoris' talent at writing show notes yet. He did write show notes for like 26 episodes. 26. What am I? We're on 25. He wrote out show notes for like 22 episodes because I did one while he was still on.
Right.
And then these two. But, yeah.
Just takes practice.
Definitely. So, if you guys want to know where you can find us, you can find me on Twitter at Sirithe. You can find Aeon on Twitter at real_Aeon. You can find our guild at Timbermaw Tavern. You can find the show at lfrwowpod@gmail.com. And you can also find us on patreon.com at patreon.com/lfrwowcast. Again, thank you guys so much for listening. Luke, thank you so much for coming on. I had an absolute blast.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.
See you, everyone.
Very uncomfortable with the energy that we've created in the studio today.